Apologetics Part 2. I saw it in class. In Part 2 of Apologetics, I will look at 3 common assertions. 1. The biological cause for belief. 2. The aesthetic cause for belief. 3. The moral cause for belief. These 3 assertions are becoming popular again, yet fail for the same reason today as they have in the past. So, let's begin, shall we? Biology and the God gene. There are 2 different arguments that claim God can be discovered via our genetics. The first is that the complexity of genes as a type of coding system requires an intelligent designer. The second is that we are genetically predisposed to belief in God. The foil for the first argument is that the argument assumes that an intelligent hand is needed for all design. God is needed for a designer. Or in this case, a computer coder. But evolution is a form of design. Molecules, thanks to the fundamental forces, in this case, the strong and weak nuclear forces and the electromagnetic force, can reshape themselves, combine, and come apart without the help of any being. What constitutes a living thing are mechanisms that do this on purpose. That is, the molecules work together to make other molecules, such as sugars, and primitive forms of RNA. However, the universe is more than fundamental forces. With the addition of 2 new rules, we can observe random happenings to those with a purpose. The first rule is that whatever the molecules do, they must also successfully replicate themselves. Secondly, any new form of molecular movement that helps it to do the above in the environment must be preserved. With these new rules, molecules will eventually become more complex. Some molecules will specialize when they are able to work with other molecules in a symbiotic relationship. These specialized parts may turn into what we call DNA, cytoplasm, ribosomes, etc., all contained in a semi-permeable membrane. The first, bacteria. The coding of DNA is simply a specialized molecule that drives the rest of the cell. Given our 2 rules above, and enough time, the simple molecules can become human beings. The second argument is that we are genetically predisposed to believe in God. Part of our hominid heritage is curiosity. The funny thing about curiosity is that it requires a drive to know things. A drive so powerful that one cannot rest until the mystery is solved. Humans are not the only creatures that have this trait. Most animals do, in fact. The evolutionary advantage is that it allows exploration into new avenues of survival. On the downside, it can get you killed too. As humans, we demand answers to questions like,
where does the sun go at night? What happens when we die? Why won't it rain? Why does it rain too much?
Ancient myths were an attempt to explain natural phenomenon. Without a system to examine the phenomenon, ancient man had to rely on observation and imagination. That is why every ancient culture had its own explanation to the above questions. But one thing they all had in common is that they explained the phenomenon in humanistic terms. As the cultures advanced, the ancient myths evolved to have a dual purpose of explaining not only natural phenomenon, but also the human condition. Humans are not only communal creatures, but hierarchical ones as well. Even in a democracy, the purpose of voting is to elect leaders to that hierarchy. In ancient times it was often the strongest and most ruthless that led. To claim that there are strong ruthless beings that cause flooding and withhold rain as punishment for not brown-nosing them enough, is only an extension of the ancient petty king system that comprised the first civilizations. Thus our belief in a God is not a product of our genes, but a byproduct of our evolutionary process. Art and Political Science class. Another apologetic tactic is to claim that things like art and a sense of justice are due to God. However, such things are also explained through the same mechanism that does away with the notion of a God gene: evolution. Continuing from our theme of awe and elation, beauty can be added as well. The claim is that there is no reason for humans to appreciate beauty in evolutionary terms, therefore God must have granted it. But this is not so. Many animals appreciate beauty. It is how they find a suitable mate. Certain spiders, crabs, and birds dance to attract a mate. Some animals display brilliantly colored plumage or other organs designed to attract a mate. Others do a combination of these. As humans have no mating season, one of our many strengths, the ability to attract a mate at any time, is an evolutionary weapon of mass procreation. Our appreciation for sunsets and lilies are a wonderful byproduct of evolution. Another apologetic claim is that without a God there can be no laws, no justice. Justice and morality are closely linked, and everything I have to say about morality applies to justice as well. So I will skip political science class and head to our next class. Ethics 101. The final argument I will look at in this section is the claim that without a God, there will be no reason to be moral. Alternatively, the argument will claim that the laws of morality come from God. These are both very flawed and dubious claims and a horrendous position to take for several reasons. The claim implies that morality is absolute, came from God, divine command theory, and that the threat of eternal punishment and the promise of eternal reward is necessary for us to act good. Humans are communal creatures. Because of this we must adhere to certain rules in order for the community to maintain cohesion. This is not limited to people. Other primates and non-primates alike have their own set of morals unique to the species. Prohibitions against indiscriminate killing, theft and lying, as well as care of children, are central to the ethics of all human cultures. Now, what limits are placed on when it's okay to do those things, and to whom vary between cultures, but the general rules are still there. In other words, morality is a product of our evolution into communal animals, into human beings. But to answer the God question, in the Euthyphro, by Plato, the main character, Euthyphro, tells Socrates that what is just, or morally good, is what the gods command. Socrates then asks, is what the gods command good because they command it, or do the gods command it because it is good? What that means is, if morals are such because God commands it, then morality is arbitrary. They are a whim. If morality precedes God, and that is why he commands it, then he did not create morals, which leads to a lessening of God's status, of something greater than God. Thus, either God isn't great, or morals are merely a divine whim. Another problem with tying morality to the divine is that morality is not absolute. Most religions adhere to an absolutist view of morality, meaning what is good, and there is no room to wiggle. In other words, it is non-relativistic. Yet in the sacred texts of these religions, God, or the gods, often violate these very same rules. For instance, mass murder and genocide is frowned upon in modern society. Some moralists would even say that it is an utterly evil act. Yet at times the gods do just this. Most religions have a story where their deity cleans the earth of wicked people. Perhaps one of the most famous is the story of Noah, from the book of Genesis in the Trip. In this story, Noah is commanded by God to build a boat to house his family and two of every kind of animal on earth. The reason for this is because mankind had become wicked, and God was going to drown them all, save Noah and his kin. Let that sink in for a moment. Every pregnant woman, every baby in his crib, every child that has yet to speak her first word, were killed indiscriminately. Anyone who defends this act speaks not only of their poor grasp of morality, but also confirms that what is moral doesn't apply to God. It's relative. Lastly, the mark of good people is that they do good, and refrain from evil, because that is the right thing to do. Only doing what is right to chase after a reward is selfish and materialistic. Refraining from evil only under threat of punishment is the mark of a criminal mind. To say that a deity, or karma for that matter, is necessary to mete out punishments and rewards for behavior, is to accept that there is no such thing as morality, as good, in and of itself. It is to say that there are no good people. This, of course, is absurd, and quite insulting to us good people. If you need an overseer to do good, and refrain from evil, you not only lack morals, but empathy as well. In conclusion, we developed our morals, our curiosity, and our appreciation of beauty through evolution, not a deity. If you think about it, that makes life even more precious and wonderful than one designed by a higher power.